had to say on his show about the respect that past generations of basketball players have towards his generation. He did not mince words, and neither did former NBA star Baron Davis in this, what I thought was an absolutely fascinating conversation.
People say you must respect each era, but the past eras don't respect this era.
I don't think that's true.
I don't think that respect is passed down to us from the other generations, but I think people are quick to say, oh, you got to respect them because they came before. I don't agree with that.
You absolutely have to absolutely respect the people who came before you, because
my respect is earned. And what you did to somebody else don't necessarily earn you respect. Just because you played before me does not mean you deserve respect. I'm sorry, but God had in his plan for you to be born before me, and you just deserve respect because of that? Nah, my mom ain't raised me that way. Respect is earned.
An absolutely fascinating give and take. And I wanted to put together this group because there's a lot of different perspective here. This applies to all sports, to football and beyond. Candidly, it applies beyond sports as well. But Marcus, I'll start with you as a player who was active, I mean, in theory, even now, and obviously played in this current generation. And I'm sure you were part of conversations like this all the time on team planes and wherever else you may be talking about it. Do the players of this generation feel as though they are disrespected by players of the past?
I have to say, yeah, you have Chuck and Charles, and Charles and Shaq sometimes go on there, and they're I wouldn't say disrespecting players, because I am a player, and it's certain players, right? It's certain players that don't show up. It's certain players that's getting paid the amount of money but don't put it out there every night, right? I think Draymond can speak for himself and maybe the Warriors, right? When he says about the respect aspect. But if you look around the league and you kind of take a look back at what the guys before us have done to be able to have guys to be able to sit out games. You couldn't do those type of things back in the day. Guys played through injury. They don't do that no more. So I think when the older guys are speaking on that, it's speaking about like being present for 82 games, putting your body on the line, earning your money. A lot of these guys in the NBA don't. So I don't fully agree with what Draymond said.
There's a level of appreciation that I think goes in both directions. I think that an older generation of players may feel as though we built this thing for you guys so that you can live the way you do. You can make the money that you do. And it would just, I can't speak for anybody else, but it feels to me like sometimes what they're saying is it would be nice if you showed that you were aware of that and that you appreciate that. And that's the part where I would disagree with Draymond. It's not just that they played before, but that they actually constructed something that did not previously exist. That has given the players of this generation opportunities that players of previous generations could never have even dreamt of. Alan, you've been around it a long time.
Yeah, it's 20 years, and it's something even LeBron has recently talked about as well, is the respect factor. But this has all started because Oscar Robertson was actually reacting to something that Draymond said, saying that the NBA game is boring. And so he said, well, maybe it's boring because you're just passing the ball to Steph Curry. That's all you're doing. And maybe it's boring for you. And so there's a little shot. But first of all, for Draymond Green, like, trash talk is part of your whole game. Like, so all he's doing is just throwing a little bit of shade at you. I don't think it was disrespect of a generation. I think it was simply disrespect because you were saying something about the NBA game that Oscar feels very personal about, right? So that's all the things. I feel like the sensitivity factor in the current generation when it comes to criticism is something that we really didn't see as much in the past.
How about, what is your, again, as guys who played, it's a different sport, but it's the same generation, and very recently, what is your, when you hear this?
It's no different than being a parent. Like, I look at my kids in my household, they're growing up completely different than I did from a single parent growing up. And I can't look at them and criticize the things that they assume or take for granted, because those are some of the things I provided. I think what Draymond Green has to realize, yes, the players that have come before me, they've set the stepping stone for us to go out there and do our thing. But what he's asking is for that mutual respect for the guys to come and say, hey, I don't want to hear someone say Steph Curry couldn't play in our era, or LeBron and his flopping wouldn't work in the 80s. Yeah. Everybody would adjust and play their game. So I think that respect level has to be mutual, where the guys that came before us can watch our game and say, yes, in our sport, it is very different. You can't hit the same way and do some of those same things, but the product is still great.
Yeah, I'm big on the mutual respect, but also J-Mac, I remember when I played, man, just having that respect for a guy like Billy White Shoes Johnson, who paved the way for me. And when you look at a guy like Jim Brown, who went through the things that he went through during his era to pave the way for all of us to be able to be compensated and play a game to the level that we're able to play with it, I think that respect has to be there. It also saddens me that you have a lot of players, right? You have these historians that played the game and paved the way. Why don't these young players reach out to those guys?
Never happens.
Let me know how you did it.
I will, yes, and this is all part of what should be and can be and will be a much bigger conversation. I will say, because sometimes I tend to take the older person's perspective on this, because I guess I am an older person, but I also think it is worth pointing out that the players of the modern era deal with criticism, deal with reaction, deal with more conversation about what they do than players of previous generations can ever have imagined. And I think that probably contributes to it as well. They live in a fishbowl that players of different eras did not live in, and I think that's a factor in this as well. All right, we'll talk more about that as we go. I think it's an interesting topic. I have something else really special I want to get to. But let me remind you, the NCAA Women's Final Four is tomorrow on ESPN, Texas and South Carolina at 7 Eastern. Then UConn takes on UCLA. Pregame begins at 6. Sue Bird and Diana Taurasi will be with you on ESPN2 and on ESPN+. I want to take a moment here, and this is one of the best. I've been at ESPN almost 29 years. Yesterday may have been my favorite day. If you're watching NFL Live, you saw the show had a different look than it usually does. Madden Orlovsky, who is the son of our beloved buddy Dan Orlovsky, helped to create all the studio graphics for the show. Madden is one of Dan's 3 boys, and in honor of World Autism Awareness Day, NFL Live's director Tim Farrell suggested that Madden's drawings be used on the set and as the show's graphics. And as you can see, Madden really delivered. He got to leave school for the show. He joined Dan, Laura, Field, and J-Mac on the set. All the monitors were filled with his drawings. Dan says that Madden's autism is his superpower and that his drawings give him an out to express himself and have some fun. Madden also showed off pictures from the movie Toy Story, and then it turned into this moment.
Andy's first toy is... Ooh. Was? Woody.
Woody!
Woody! I love it! You got a friend in me.
That is not it.
And he sing too?
Dan. You got a friend in me.
Oh, got it.
On the road.
You can draw.
Rub a head and you're miles and miles from your